record on this.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to push my camera back a little bit. Perfect. All right. And I'm going to start with our intro in 3, 2, 1. I'm Lori Lizarraga, and this is Speaker Sessions with Space Horizons. Today, we're talking with Spencer Haywood. A lot of you probably know that name. Spencer is a legend. You went from playing basketball at tiny Trinidad Junior College in Colorado to being this star of the men's 1968 Olympic basketball team at the age of 19, not that much older than most of you watching. By the time he was 20, Spencer was playing for the ABA Denver Rockets, leading the league in scoring and rebounding, and was named the league MVP. So it makes sense that his next move was to the NBA. But one of Spencer's greatest contributions came from a different kind of court, the Supreme Court. When the NBA tried to punish Spencer for joining the league too young, he fought the NBA's eligibility requirements and he won, allowing players to be eligible for the NBA draft right out of high school or during college, which was not the way it was before Spencer got involved. And every player in the NBA owes Spencer a huge debt of gratitude, and we are so grateful to get to talk to you today. Mr. Haywood, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And class of 2015 Naismith Basketball Hall of Famer.
Well, I mean, the list could go on and I
know we can go on. Yeah, we're good. We're good. So how you doing? How you doing?
Doing so well. Thank you so much for asking. And thanks for giving, especially you, Mr. Haywood, students a look into advice that you might have and a look deeper into your career, because you did start out so incredibly young.
Yes, I did. Let me just go back for a second, because I did sign with the University of Tennessee out of high school. And out of high school, before I got to the University of Tennessee, we had a drought in the city of Detroit for 35 years before anyone had won the Class A state championship. And so Will Robinson and I and my teammates, we won the Class A state championship and ended that drought in 1967 after 35 years. And we brought the championship back to Detroit. So that was a wonderful thing. And out of high school, I then signed with the University of Tennessee, being the first Black player to sign in the Southeastern Conference and to move forward. And the year before, the University of Kentucky had lost to 5 Blacks known as the Texas Western. And I think there's a movie out about that championship year for the NCAA. And Adolph Rupp wanted me to come to Kentucky, but I could not see myself in Kentucky at the University of Kentucky. So I ended up going to a junior college for 1 year. Was it going to be for 1 year or 2 years? Depends upon how well I did with my grades in academics. And so when I got to the campus, I ended up being the outstanding college player and the MVP for the National Junior College Olympic team. And then the 68 Olympics was rolling around. And with the 68 Olympics, we had boycotts, we had uprisings, we had events that were taking place even before we got to the Olympics. And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar made the announcement at the time that he was not going to participate in the 68 Olympics. Elvin Hayes and Wes Unseld signed their pro contract. And remember, young folks, back then you had to be an amateur. You could not have a pro contract. You could not be a pro. You could not be a semi-pro. You had to be strictly amateurs to try out and be with the Olympic team. So the Olympic Committee decided they would bring me in just as, you know, a fill-in, because I was the MVP in junior college, and they had invited the NIA, the NC2A, Division 1, 2, and 3, and the military, AAU. So we had brought in all of these people to participate. And lo and behold, when I got on the floor and was showing my wares, Hank Iber, who was the then coach of the 68 Olympic team, says, well, you know, we can't let that boy get hurt. And so Jerry Tarkanian, who was the coach at UNLV later, but before then he was at the junior college ranks, and he was our coach for the team that we had to go down to Albuquerque. And he got all excited. You might make the team. Of course, I was just thinking as a young 18-year-old that I'm going to get me some gear, some nice, travel gear, and I'll tell everybody back in Detroit, hey, I tried out for the Olympic team. You don't believe me? Here's my gear. And when they started to pick the team, the first player was picked was me. I was like, oh,
You
oh.
shocked even yourself.
I shocked myself, of course. And they cut the great pistol Pete Maravich, who was averaging 44 points per game. They cut Rick Mount, who was averaging 39 per game. I know these college scores sounds weird back then, and Calvin Murphy got cut as well, and he was averaging 33.
Hey, Spencer, it's all impressive to me.
Okay.
I can't get one
Those
of anything.
numbers were
So
like,
all of it is amazing.
Yeah. So, and then we assembled the team, and I didn't have a birth certificate because I had came up from Mississippi, and my mom had given birth to me on the bed because we could not go to the doctors in Mississippi because it was like black and white. And so I was born by a midwife, and she had forgot to put my name in. I know, in the Jackson Daily Vital Statistics. So we had to go back to Mississippi, and my mother said, I have the birth certificate right here. And so everybody, well, why don't you send it up to us, and we'll send it out to Colorado Springs, and we was in Alamosa at the time, and we'll get it taken care of, and we send it back to you. She says, oh no, it's in my Bible.
She wrote down your official record in her Bible. It's not a certified document. I see.
But it was a certified document because of the situation in Mississippi. So they came down, took a picture of it.
Wow.
And they gave me my birth certificate. So that's how I ended up going to Russia, Yugoslavia, and then coming back to New York and played scrimmage against the Knicks. And we also scrimmaged against the Cincinnati Royals, and then on into Mexico City.
You came back a gold medalist, an Olympic gold
medalist.
Well,
this is before the Olympics. We had pre-exhibition season. So when we got to we got to Mexico City, there was this uproar that's going on because we had Tommy Smith and John Carlos, the guys who did the Black Glove. Yeah. So everybody was like, oh my God, they're going to be trouble. And so they told me and George Foreman was there for boxing. So all of the young guys, you stay away from those guys. And lo and behold, we had a big meeting with Jesse Owens, the great Olympian, and we had many executives there, and they had the meeting prior to me with Martin Luther King and all of Jackie Robinson and all of those people before they got to the Olympics, and said it wouldn't be no problem and it would be great. And so we got out and we just started playing basketball, and we wasn't expected to win the gold. It was going to be the first year that we would have lost. And so we ended up winning the gold medal. And they started, I was standing on the podium just crying like a young kid should do, a young person would do, because I was overwhelmed with the joy of what has taken place. And they put that gold medal on my neck. And I was like, wow. 3 years ago, I was picking cotton in Mississippi as a slave, and now I'm representing the United States with this gold medal. What an awesome feat. And so we all celebrated, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. And then I came back to the University of Detroit because we were trying to build the city of Detroit back, because we had the riots in '67, which the city got burned down. And so I was there to try to get it started up. And then after 1 year, I decided to jump into the ABA, because the ABA was an upstart league with the red, white, and blue ball for young folks. And we were exciting. We had the three-point shot. We had all of the stuff that the NBA didn't have. And
wow, no kidding.
And so they asked me, said, if since you're the first one to ever come out early and to go into the ABA as a young player at the age of 20, um, but if you get five points and 2 rebounds, this thing would work, and then we can go out and get Julius Erving, George Gervin, and all the other players. So I got lucky, and I did 30 points and 19.5 rebounds, which I was the rookie of the year, leading scorer, leading rebounder, MVP of the league, and MVP of the All-Star game. So it's the only time in basketball history that someone has won ran the table. So that was joyful. And of course,
I'm sure it wasn't joyful for everybody else who was playing with you, because there was nothing else to be got.
I know. It was one of those magical years. And then
Good for you, though. That's incredible.
Yeah, the following year, I signed with the Seattle Supersonics because Denver gave me a fraudulent contract. And when I signed with the Seattle Supersonics in the NBA, they said, ladies and gentlemen, we can't let him play when I walked out on the floor because he has not finished his 4 years of college. And I had 1 more year left. And so they filed suit against me for the rights to ban me from playing. And I filed suit against the NBA and against the NC2A for the rights to play. And so the case went on that whole season. It was just turmoil upon turmoil. And they threw me out into the snow many nights, and they would come on and broadcast, ladies and gentlemen, we have an illegal player on the floor, number 24. This game cannot proceed with him in the arena. He must be banned out of the arena. So they would have the security and the policeman would have an injunction. They would escort me out and put me out into the snow.
That's so crazy. Spencer, what made you decide that you wanted to continue pursuing working as a professional player in the NBA, given how much you were up against?
Well, what I was up against was one thing, but what I was fighting for was another, because my mother was still picking cotton in Mississippi, in the poorest county in the United States. Wow. And it's called Humphreys County. And I was from a little town called Silver City, Mississippi. It ain't no silver and it ain't no city. It's like a population of 375 people in the county.
I'm from a small Texas town myself, so I'm
you
familiar.
Know what I'm talking about. Okay, so my mother was picking cotton for $2 a day. My family was still in poverty. And I said, well, one thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to get her out of poverty. I wanted to get her out of the cotton field. And so I just fought the case because I knew that other players were crying the same cry that I was crying, that, we're doing all of this work for the NC2A and we can't get paid. We can't survive like this. Our families are in poverty, whether it's in Michigan and Detroit or Chicago or Mississippi. Our family was dirt poor and we're making millions of dollars for these people. And so I just decided that I must take on this challenge. And Muhammad Ali talked to me and said, well, keep up the good fight. Let's go with it. Curt Flood was also, these were the other 2 gentlemen that was at the Supreme Court. And Curt Flood was there for baseball. You got to stand up for yourself. You got to keep going. And lo and behold, I reached all the way at the end of the year, I reached the Supreme Court. And that's when Thurgood Marshall and Justice Douglas and all of them voted unanimously under the Sherman Antitrust Act that I could play in the NBA. And so the shackles were all, and I started playing. And from that time on, we have you look at the number of players who have came in from 1971, March 1st, 1971, the case was won, until today, it's something like $33 billion in player revenue for just salaries, not in terms of endorsements or anything else, just salary. And for the owners were able to get out of 14 teams to 30 teams because they had a pool in which to pour from. And the teams were worth $300 to $400 million at that time. Now they're worth $4 billion. So I'm this little guy.
I mean, so that's a great question, I guess, for the students who are watching, because you're a guy from a very small town, and prospects for people who are people of color in a state that you were in the year that you were in, you should not have succeeded, let alone have this much success. I mean, all of
I
the
know.
odds are against you. So what made you believe differently about yourself?
My mother and my family was truly believers in the Most High God, and that was my whole mantra all the way through this. Because if I look at it in the sense of reality, and not in the sense of like looking beyond myself, it was impossible. Because I got to Detroit, I was thrown out of Silver City because they were trying to arrest me because I was growing big and they wanted me to stay on the farm. So my mother sent me up to Detroit. I ended up in Detroit with my brother, staying with him. And lo and behold, Will Robinson, who was the first Black coach in NC2A division history, saw me and said, I want him to play on my team at Persian. And we need a family to adopt him as well. James and Ida Bell, they adopt me along with Will Robinson. And that happened right then. And then we went all the way to the Class A state championship after 35 years of a drought. That was a miracle. Then I ended up at Tennessee and it didn't work out in Tennessee. And I ended up at Trinidad State Junior College. And if I had been at a major university, I couldn't have tried out for the Olympic team because you had to be a junior, a sophomore or a junior to try out. Couldn't be
It's
a freshman.
incredible how all of those things line up
So
like it was supposed to be.
it was God's will. So
And
for the students, that you have to believe in something higher than yourself, because when you're playing basketball, when you release that shot and let it go, you don't know that it's going in, but you sure do believe that it's going in. And if you have that belief system that rolls right through with everything that you're doing, you'll find success.
do you believe that that's advice for students that they can take, whether they're athletes or, just first generation students,
Just
kids who are
students.
maybe first generation college even?
Yeah.
That seems to apply to a lot of
That
different people's
seems to
lives.
apply. I'm a father of 4 daughters. I have no boys. So we've had long chats about this, and they are, like they're grown and everything. They are grown. And so we have a lot of long chats about these type of things, and that how the miracle works and how it works in your life. Whether you're a student, you're struggling with grades, you're struggling with being accepted in school or in classroom, or you're coming up from middle school to high school, all of these acceptance things. If you got a spiritual base, whatever it might be Islam, it might be Christ, it might be Buddha, it could be whoever, but it's not you. So so you have to turn it over to a higher power, and that would be your driving force. That would protect you under all circumstances, in my experience.
That's wonderful to hear too, that it played such a big role in your life, and now you're passing down that treasure, because it seems to mean a lot to you and has influenced your life in such big ways.
Yeah.
I'm the daughter of a pastor, so I
You
know.
you understand. Yeah.
And I love to hear it. For students watching this, who may be learning about you for the first time, do you believe that players who they do know and who they are fans of recognize the influence that you've had on the industry?
No, they don't know, because for some reason, because I did sue the NBA and I sued the NC2A, so my history has been, like just forgotten, pushed under the rug. But, like I say it at my Hall of Fame speech, it may not come on my time, but it will come on God's time, and it will be right on time, and it always is on time. And right now, it is exploding into, I just finished another book with Mark Spears. It's called The Spencer Haywood Rule. I have been, we're doing another documentary, the Spencer Haywood Rule movie. We got the podcast. We got a number of players, Kevin Durant and LeBron James just did a piece on me on Showtime
That's
about the
incredible.
rule. And so it is just happening all around me. And I keep saying, why now? And, why question God, but it's right now. And so I've been so blessed to look at the young players now that are in the NBA. They just learning about me, and they're starting to understand. Wait a minute. You mean if I'm a LeBron James, for an example, I make 45 million a year playing basketball. I wouldn't have had 4 years. I would have had 4 years off of that. So it's nearly like $185 million that I would have lost. Same thing with Durant. He's did 3 years. So Steph Curry, 2 years. So it goes on and on like that,
And
those numbers.
it's incredible too, to think about someone, especially as young as you were, standing up for what you knew was a better way.
Mhm.
In a few sentences, can you help sort of put that into advice? Because you were a teenager. I mean, 2021 when this all
Well, I was
happened.
19, and when I was 19 at the Olympics. I turned 19 at the Olympics, and it's like, what are you doing here?
to know that you should stand up for yourself and what you believed was right. I
Yes,
mean, what
you
gave
have
you
to.
that conviction? And
Yeah, well, because I come from this spiritual background where, we had no hope. And the only hope that we had was believing that God is going to protect us from the evil that's around us. God is going to protect us from being abused or shot or hung in this county. Then I go to Detroit, the music scene, everything was happening around me. And then you had the Motown people said, well, no, we're not going to let anything happen to him. And the Temptations, the Smokey Robinson, all of those guys brought me into the studio when I was 18 and 19 years old, and just telling me, don't do like this guy over here. This guy is on drugs, and this guy is on this. And so they were like educating me. Of course, I had a slip in my playing career, but I brushed myself up and got myself together, and I've gotten, this is my 31st year of sobriety by the
wow,
grace of God.
congratulations,
So
Mr. Haywood. That's
yeah,
incredible.
so it's I've been so blessed.
It's
My,
a journey.
it's a journey, and
And
you
certainly
must
I'm
take that
sure.
journey. And for the young people who are listening, don't be disruptive or anything, but stay the course, stay what you focus on, and get advice from elders, and find your path, because your path is there, and you just have to look a little deeper with a big eye, and you'll find that path, because the path is the right way, and it will lead you through high school, junior high school, through college, or on to whatever you want to do, because entrepreneurship is really big nowadays, and young people are creating all of these new avenues, and you guys are a part of it, so you have to expand yourself.
That's absolutely right. And again, can't thank you enough for taking the time to talk with us, to introduce students to the incredible work that you've done, and really the power that anybody has who is willing to work hard
Yeah.
and stand up for what they know is right and believe in themselves. And we certainly know the entire professional basketball industry certainly stands on the shoulders of people like you. So
Yeah.
thank you for what you did then and what you're continuing to do to speak advice and encouragement into the next generation.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Where can people get your book, Mr. Haywood?
Well, they can get the book on Amazon, Amazon.com, and all of your bookstores do have it, and it's called the Spencer Haywood Rule. Not, like I'll say the league and they call it the NC2A. They always call it something that it wasn't. They called it early entry. They call it one and done. They call it the hardship, but it's always has been, and it will be, the Spencer Haywood Rule. So pick it up.
You earned
Great
that,
read.
absolutely. So now we know what the right name is.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Spencer. It's wonderful getting to meet you. I hope we can stay in touch.
All right. Thank you.